probably going 60 miles an hour. And these are ripple marks of gravel, 50 feet tall, 50-foot tall ripples. When you're on the ground, you can see it. It's lumpy looking, but it's almost difficult to see until you look at a picture of it. And then you see ripple marks in 100 different places along the floodplain on bars. This is one in, I believe, northern Idaho right here. Ripple marks from water. And then from space, you see the pattern where it cut through the light-colored silt into the black basalt. And they don't farm that basalt, so you see the flow path. It's like a braided stream or a stream that splits up like that, except this is well over 100 miles wide from right in here to right in here. Converged down in here and through all these various paths. And here it formed Grand Coulee in a matter of days. This is Lower Grand Coulee looking south, where it carved through what's called the Coulee monocline. Here's Upper Grand Coulee, where we have Banks Lake right now. It carved through up to 900 feet of basalt, a matter of days. It carved Palouse Canyon 500 feet deep, vertical walls, in a matter of days. It formed this right here, Dry Falls. These are plunge pools. Now, a normal stream will not form a cliff like that. It'll tend to erode down at a gradual level like that. So if a stream eroded this during the Ice Age, it would be a gradual descent, not a big drop-off 400 feet tall. This indicates a huge waterfall. This waterfall is about 4 miles long, I might add. We're just seeing a little part of it. This is another waterfall, 400 feet tall, and these are deep plunge pools from waterfalls. This is the potholes. And this is where it overtopped a ridge before it went into the Columbia River west of Ephrata. And here you see bars by the hundreds. Here's one bar southwest of Spokane. Here's a bar 200 feet high along the Snake River. Here's another bar on top of a ridge south of Arlington, Oregon. And this is a foreset bed with a current. You can it went from left to right in this. In other words, from east to west. This is the top of a ridge. And of course, you have this huge Portland Delta or gravel bar, 200 square miles, 300 feet thick, where it was streaming through the Columbia Gorge up to 80 miles an hour, and then it spread out in the Portland-Vancouver area and just dumped its load, forming up to 300 to 400 feet of gravel all through here. And the Columbia River eventually cut through here, and the Willamette River cut through this part right here. But most of Portland and Vancouver are on a monstrous gravel bar from the Lake Missoula flood. And you find these erratic boulders of granite that don't outcrop anywhere near in all kinds of places. Like this is on top of a ridge south of Arlington. This is the biggest granite erratic I've seen. It's about probably 30 feet long before it broke up. Here's another granite in the Columbia Gorge about 300 feet above the Columbia River, indicating that some iceberg dropped this at least 300 feet above the Columbia River. This is Will Tibbs. We went out in the field a lot together, and the book is dedicated to him since he passed away from, let's see, I forgot what he did, but a heart attack or about 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Anyway, here's that erratic in the Willamette Valley southwest of Portland. Only an iceberg can explain that. Here is a plot of all the erratics that don't outcrop anywhere in this area. In the Willamette Valley, there's well over 200 of them plotted right in here. Strong indications of a flood. And a lot of the silt was streamlined to form a lens-shaped windblown silt hills on top of the basalt. There's hundreds of these in eastern Washington. Strong evidence that there was a Lake Missoula flood. But 40 years, they rejected it because it was too biblical. And I focus in this book on why they rejected it. It's because they never bothered to go check the data, first of all. Hardly any of them ever went out to eastern Washington to check it for themselves. They just jumped to conclusions because they couldn't believe in a flood that large. Well, the same thing, they're never going to see evidence of the Genesis flood either because they've blinded their minds and they're not looking at the world that way. But when I look at the world through flood glasses, I see evidence of the Genesis flood all over. And I don't have to have a big imagination to do it either. It is actually all over. In summary, the recent ice age was real and is a mystery for the present processes over millions of years model. Noah's flood caused the transitional climate for an ice age, which is strong evidence for the flood. The ice age lasted only 700 years. We don't need 100,000 years for an ice age. There was only one ice age, and there will never be another ice age. Much data of the recent past supports the post-flood rapid ice age model. Ancient ice ages are gigantic submarine landslides during the flood. The Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets are young, and only the Bible ultimately explains the ice age because of the flood. A few concluding thoughts that I started with in those questions at the beginning. If mainstream scientists cannot explain the most recent event in Earth history, the ice age, why should we trust them for older events if they can't explain the most recent one? The ice age is an example of what can be done with other challenges to the Bible, to the biblical timescale, to the flood. And we have lots of challenges, by the way, lots of things to explain. But bringing the flood back, I believe, takes care of 80% of our time challenges. And time is not a side issue. I'm finding that by a compressed time scale, I was able to provide reasonable solutions to the Ice Age and the woolly mammoth by a compressed time scale. So time is actually the key, I believe, to solving a lot of these mysteries, a short time scale, not a long time scale. Just recently, John Morris said in Acts and Facts, in my opinion, the post-flood Ice Age and the frozen mammoths comprise one of the strongest creationist arguments. And I thank John for that. You can read more about it in the in-depth study, An Ice Age Caused by the Genesis Flood, published by ICR. And there's a children's book that my wife and I did. We had lots of fun writing this. Suddenly you're teleported back to the time of the Ice Age, just south of the ice sheet. How would you live? The weather would be horrible. You're not going to build a house. You're not going to have a tent. You're going to live in a cave. You're going to be caveman. And that's the explanation for caveman. They were taking advantage of bad weather, and they took advantage of the caves. And this is a story of one summer. As the ice is melting, it's warming up, and they interact with Neanderthal type people, which are types of people. And they have a woolly mammoth hunt and a cave bear hunt, and all sorts of adventures, all from the eyes of a 12-year-old boy. And of course, if you want to know more about weather, and there's a part about the Ice Age and global warming and the ozone. By the way, the ozone hole is shrinking drastically. I was just reading. In the last few years, it's shrinking drastically. Whether that's a result of less fluorocarbons we're putting in the air is probably correct, but I don't quite know. Could be a natural fluctuation. Could not. It's hard to say. It's reacting so quick. Yeah, I just read this because it's supposed to be its biggest in September and October, and so it's a lot smaller. Anyway, the Creation Research Society is putting out these road logs. I and friends always get these from lay people coming to us and say, we go to these